Hey there, this is episode 85 of the first 10 minutes. I'm Tony Parmetto.
I'm Steve Helliwell.
And I'm Aaron Williams.
And this is a video games podcast where we play the first 10 minutes of a video game. Then we sit down here to discuss how well that game communicates itself to the player, both in terms of what the game is about and how to play the game. And in response to our latest listener poll, which you can find at the first 10 minutes on Twitter, you, the listeners, voted for us to play Superbrothers Swords and Sworcery EP. Steve, you played aforementioned game that I will never repeat the name of again. How did it go?
It went fine. So
did I pronunciate it correctly this week?
I mean, I guess.
We don't want to repeat it.
I think you did better than last week, Tony.
Last week's.
I'm not sure you really hit the colon and the capitalization of EP, but
man.
It's fine.
That is true.
I mean, I could have said ep, but I didn't.
Yep.
But I chose to pronounce it swords.
That's fine.
Because of the Sworcery.
Yeah.
And I was wondering.
Good practice.
I was wondering. We don't usually dig into the name thing, but I'm hoping that's a thing that you're about to talk about as you kick us off with Wikipedia, Steve.
Sure. Superbrothers: Sword and Sworcery EP is an indie adventure video game created by Superbrothers and Capybara Games with music by Jim Guthrie.
Yay, Jim
It was
Guthrie.
initially released for iOS devices with a version for Windows via Steam coming later. Mac OS X and Linux ports were included in the release of the Humble Indie Bundle 5. A port for the Android platform was released as part of the fourth Humble Bundle for Android. Wikipedia also wants to make sure that we know that the iOS and Android versions make use of device orientation during gameplay.
Hey, Steve, I've got a really weird pitch for how we can expand the brand of the first 10 minutes. Could you perhaps do audiobooks of Wikipedia entries?
Yeah, we could do that. But for long entries, only the first 10 minutes of them.
Yep.
I'm down. Let's do it. Do we have Steam tags?
We're not there yet. So originally, Sword and Sworcery came out in March of 2011 on iOS. It was released on PCs, etc., at a later date that I didn't bother to hunt down, but it was later.
2011 is a scarily long time ago.
It was, wasn't it?
Yeah.
All right, Steam tags. It is a adventure, indie, pixel graphics, great soundtrack, point and click, atmospheric, female protagonist, single player, fantasy, puzzle, relaxing, casual, 2D, touch friendly, exploration, retro, story rich, music game.
I'm sorry, touch friendly?
It's touch friendly.
What does that mean?
You ask the community of Steam. I imagine that is a tag that means if you're playing it on a touch device, it would work just fine.
Sure.
Which, given that
I know. I play most of my Steam games on touch devices.
Well, if you had a Surface Pro,
you
could
good
play
point
this
made.
by
Point well made. I just thought about my Steam controller as well.
Yeah.
I imagine there's probably I can.
That'd be a weird one, but yeah, it would work, I guess. So as I mentioned, I'm playing on PC, but I had played some of it on iOS around the time it came out many moons ago, and forgotten most of it. So I have some kind of rambling notes for us to weave in and out of. Jump in with questions when you have some.
Okay.
As I understand it, Aaron, you played some of this again recently as well to refresh your memory.
Yes, I did on the iPhone. The original platform.
We're going to have an element of non-linear storytelling in this particular episode.
In this linear narrative game, yes.
No, I mean in the way that we discuss it.
Yes.
Oh.
Cool. So in summary...
Yep.
Zethro Live, baby.
The first note I've written down is boom bop bada boom bop boom bop bada boom bop bada boom.
Not too many bars. Not too many bars.
Anyway,
Seriously.
So
Jim Guthrie's cool. He's fine.
He's fine. He'll be fine with it. So there's that. I hear the intro of that several times because I walked in and out of what I presume is a hut where you would save your game, and it reset the sound, and that made me sad. So this game is a side-on 2D point-and-click adventure game. I walk around and I dialogue things. In my 10 minutes, I never choose dialogue options. I only click on things and have things told to me. The storytelling is always text. There's no words spoken what's written. Characters do have barks, like one of the characters says, "Hey," when you tap him. And there's combat. The combat I've described as being like Infinity Blade, which doesn't help if you haven't played that game. But essentially, it's timing based. You have a sword or a shield, and you need to tap them at the right time to either prevent you taking damage or to inflict damage.
So it's a rhythm game.
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, Steam tag says music, so I don't know what that means.
I was trying to bait you there, Steve, but you didn't quite rise. Take the bait.
Didn't work.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, there's combat that I get to probably about 6 minutes into my first 10 minutes. There's not really a tutorial in terms of this strict sense of here is how you video game. Because it was on iOS, all it really asks is you press the play button, so you would have to tap that on a device or right click it with my mouse, and it gives me a little like their version of the Halo look left, look right. It makes me tap two icons on either side of the screen before it lets me continue.
I think the narrative conceit around that is that it's testing your stereo sound system.
It's making you feel bad if you haven't plugged headphones in. And you're on an iPhone, because then it would be mono. Which is cool, I guess. If you really want people to have headphones in, which you should, it sounds nice. It would be a shame to have it pumped out of an iPhone speaker.
And this game is an EP.
Yeah. So the
executive
color palette,
producer.
Yeah.
Yes, that's correct.
It's the money man.
This game is Lawrence Bender.
Yeah.
The Lawrence Bender of video games. I knew we'd get there eventually.
This game is Steven Spielberg every time he's not directing.
Okay, it's the Transformers franchise. Is that what you said?
Yes, correct. It's Super 8.
Throwing some shade.
It's Animaniacs.
Nice. The first thing that strikes me about the game when I start playing it is the color palette. The art style I would describe as big pixels. So it's not trying to ape any particular era of console. Like, it's not trying to look like an 8-bit game or a 16-bit game or an Atari game or anything.
Right.
It's got way too many pixels per screen to be trying to be any of those things.
Yep.
And it has smooth gradients at times that are kind of like overlays or like glows.
Okay, so
go ahead.
Would this be accurate if I haven't actually seen the game? If Another World were pixelated?
Kind of.
Yeah, that's pretty apt.
It also kind of reminds me of a mosaic painting made out of the small tiles.
Right. Okay. Yep.
Yeah. So it's big pixels, but the color palette is the most striking here, I think, because it's grays and browns,
and very dark greens.
Yeah, and really earthy colors.
So Gears of War.
But the earthiness sets it apart there, because if you think about something being grey and brown in next gen, there's these dark greens and these sort of darker teals as well in the next screen that I see.
Right.
They make it feel natural, not apocalyptic.
I know I'm just name dropping like an idiot here, but Rain World?
No, Rain World still feels like it's a nightmare place that you don't want to be. This place feels quite lovely.
I'm speaking more in terms of colours, sorry, rather than...
Yeah, but it has a lot more pure blacks. This game doesn't really have any pure blacks or pure whites.
Okay.
It's definitely in the low end of the mids for the most of the time.
I mean, I could solve this problem for myself by opening Google, but...
no, that's fine.
But that doesn't make good radio.
No.
I mean, it's sort of like... It's comparable almost to Shadow of the Colossus.
Kind of.
In terms of general colour scheme.
Yeah. But the world feels lively and it feels chipper, even though it's mostly greys and browns and earthy, foresty tones.
Yeah. A little bit of green goes a long way.
Yeah. So the first character you see, their head is essentially 4 giant pixels. That's all their head is. And they have sort of like spaghetti-looking arms that are one giant pixel thick. Right. So it's very stylized. It's not trying to look like a world that it happens to be at a low resolution.
Right. Okay.
So the way that it gets me to control this is I'm moving a mouse around. I have a cursor on screen, and I can tap things, and I get chirps and chimes coming back depending on what I'm tapping. And it doesn't really tell me, other than this initial tap left, tap right to hear stereo, what to do once the screen finishes loading. And I kind of just figure that out by tapping and dragging around the screen. So by dragging, I'm actually moving the world around behind it. And if I double tap somewhere, then the character that I assume is me will try and walk to where I've tapped. So they'll sort of pathfind along this side on world that they're in to the closest point to where I've double tapped. Mm-hmm. And it sort of gives you like a faint dotted line of where they're going to go when you do that.
Steve, can I jump in real quick?
Yeah.
It's interesting that you mentioned that, because when I was playing through it, did you get anything on screen that was sort of giving you verbs or anything like that?
So there are points of interest that it wants you to click on that have less than tip tap question mark.
Yeah.
Text next to them, pointing at them.
Okay.
To try and tell me that they're things I should probably click on more than others.
Cool.
But I sort of find myself just clicking on anything that looks like it has specific detail.
Yeah.
So there's some things in the background that have what look like mouths. So I double tapped one of them and I got a bit of text that came down and told me about it.
Yeah.
It was like an Angry Birds reference.
Sure. It was topical at the time.
Yeah, in 2011.
Yeah.
There's a dog next to my character. I know it's a dog because it makes dog noises. And as I get closer to it, it runs ahead. So it's leading me. So it's my tutorial character. So presumably I need to keep following it until
Was the dog's name Bucket or Mayhem?
Didn't know.
Oh. It's just a dog.
Yep. I find that I can zoom out with the mouse wheel. That double tapping on things that give me text gives me these kind of noise that I get, letting me know that I've done a good thing. It fits in with the rest of the music.
Law and Order is about to start.
Law and Order,
or you've just made a house in Age of Empires.
Yeah, it sounded a lot more like Age of Empires to me.
Yeah,
and a sort of a text box floats down from off screen and has a sentence in it that'll tell me something about what I've just clicked on. So the way that the sentences are written is kind of unique. Or it's I know that's a lovely sentence, isn't it?
No, but it's good. It's good, though.
Kind of unique is in keeping with the way this game is written.
Yeah. Totally.
So here I've pulled a couple out of what I saw in my 10 minutes. So I double clicked on a character that had a tip tap pointing at them.
It's mostly compulsory.
Mostly. It says, "Far from the war-ravaged steeps of Scythia, we met the dark-haired girl in the sunlit meadow. To the mountain folk of the Caucasus, she was known as Girl and seemed nice." So most of the dialogue that I get, or most of the summaries that I get, they're always past tense.
Yeah.
And they always say we. So I'm assuming that's me and the dog that I'm with, but I could be wrong. And it's sort of this bit at the end, and she seemed nice, is where the first half of this dialogue or this narrative that I get feels like lavish isn't the right word, but it's the best word I came up with at the time. It feels lavish. It feels like something that should be being told to me by Gandalf, right? Like, "Far from the war-ravaged steeps of Scythia, we met the dark-haired girl in the sunlit blah, 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 blah."
That's a little too much Jeremy Irons from Dungeons and Dragons, rather than...
Yeah.
But this little tacked-on bit that's just really friendly.
Okay.
Yeah. And that sort of persists through the other moments of dialogue as well. Like, I remember that at a certain point you get to a moment where there's like a character has led you somewhere, and it's just like the grand bridge in front of you. He doesn't seem super jazzed about it.
Yeah. So the other bit of text that I copied out is, "The wood chopping woodsman chopped wood," and that's the end of that sentence. And then it says, "To the mountain folk of the Caucasus, he was known as Logfella, and he seemed cool." And the next one is, "Logfella knew all about our woeful errand, and he agreed to lead us up the old road. Still, we definitely got the feeling that he wasn't super jazzed about this."
There it is. Oh, so Logfella is a god amongst men.
Yeah.
So Paul Bunyan.
Exactly. Yeah. Correct.
So the other thing...
Sorry, Steve, can I jump in
Tony.
with a question here? You said they mentioned specifically the Caucasus. Is this a real-world setting?
I mean, it certainly could be. I don't know in my 10 minutes But
it seems like an oddly specific thing to say the mountain folk of the Caucasus, if I recall what you said correctly, because that is a real mountain range between Europe and Asia. So
yes, and the war-ravaged steppes of Scythia, because when I googled Caucasus and found out that it is a border region in between Europe and Asia, situated between the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea.
Well, it's where
go ahead.
It's where the word Caucasian comes from. So
yes, but it also mentions in there that it comes from a Scythian folktale. The name originated from there.
Okay.
Oh, so this is potentially a folktale,
or they're steeping it in some sort of related mythology. I'm not sure.
I mean, it's just,
but they've gone to their lengths to call it out twice now already.
Okay.
Yeah.
The only reason that this is surprising to me is that just based on the name, Superbrothers, Swords and Sworcery. That's already a weird juxtaposition of something that sounds like a superhero-y kind of crime-fighting combo, and then mixed with high fantasy, but now also actual real-world location names. It just wasn't what I expected. So it has my attention.
I'm potentially jumping the gun here and also stealing some of Steve's thunder, but I think off. Like, just slightly off kilter is a really good way of describing this game. And the fact that the dialogue is half of it is so steeped in sort of fantasy writing, whereas the second half is very sort of conversational and loose. I think it's sort of like priming you to have both real world expectations, then also a willingness to just ride the wave of weirdness.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Can I perhaps derail things and drag this into a weird space and say, how does this compare to the setting of something like The Witcher?
I mean, we're the worst audience for this because I think we've collectively played the least Witcher of any three people on the planet Earth.
That's correct.
I played a fair chunk of The Witcher 3 now. So
okay, well, I've played some of the previous ones. I haven't played any of 3, and I didn't spend a lot of time with them, and it was a while ago.
But I mean, it's steeped in regional folklore of a particular part of Europe. Is this attempting to do the same thing?
It's very hard to tell from my 10 minutes.
Okay.
So it does certainly appear that it's set in a period that isn't the modern day.
All right.
There are like what appear to be straw-topped huts. There's the logman who appears that his job is to chop firewood for this hut. There are magical or seemingly magical like lock and key puzzles that I need to solve, or that I assume are lock and key puzzles.
Yep.
There are glyphs on stones. My character has what looks to be a wooden shield and sword as the things that the character carries around with them. So it doesn't seem like it's modern day.
Okay. Well, look, I mean, there's billions and billions of years of collective human experience on this planet by now, so there's all kinds of weird and wonderful places that people would draw inspiration from. But yeah, it was just unexpected. But I'll let us re-tangent back on track now.
As I mentioned, it's always talking about we. When it's the narrator talking about what was happening.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really not sure if that means me and the dog or not, or if it means the character and the player.
That's how I've interpreted it.
And that would relate to the plural title then.
Yeah,
and that you are the brothers that are super, except you're playing as a woman. But I think there's also the fact that it asks you to like it directly involves you, the player, by asking you to tap to test the stereo equipment. And then where hopefully, Steve, you do encounter combat at some point during the 10 minutes.
We can talk about that if we want.
On the phone, I have to tilt the device. I have to change the orientation in order to actually engage. In order to actually get this character into combat. So it makes you sort of like an implicit participant in this. So for me, when it's mentioning we, that's referring to me and the player character.
Okay.
Yeah. Sure. Sorry, I got bamboozled on a sidetrack of my own there. To clarify, Superbrothers is the name of the people who are calling them the designers of the game. Capybara, which I believe now is just Capy Games. I think they officially changed their title.
Yeah, I think
are
so.
the people who are attributed as the developers of the game, or the co-developers of the game.
So is Superbrothers actually part of the game title?
Yes, but I believe in more of a Player Unknown's Battlegrounds kind of way.
Mm.
Nintendo presents
ignore
Super
most
Mario
of what
Brothers.
I just said then.
That's
why, and I guess that we could infer then that Superbrothers are the artist of this EP that is titled Swords and Sworcery.
Yeah, that is what I'm led to believe.
Cool.
All right. The Wii thing is interesting, and I'm sure that I'm really hoping that's part of what I uncover if I were to keep playing the game, because it's not a thing I've encountered in another game. It's kind of like reading a book written in second person. It's not a thing you encounter very often. So I kind of enjoy reading Wii all the time. That might just be because when I'm teaching, I always say we and let's go do this thing. But well,
yeah, it doesn't feel like a royal we.
No, I didn't consider that, but it doesn't seem like that. Not the we are not super jazzed about this.
It doesn't shift to one is not amused at any point.
No, it doesn't seem like that.
Okay, right.
So I'm during all of this time. There's a couple of ways I can interact with the world in terms of like how I navigate it. So with a mouse, this feels kind of weird. Whereas as I recall on device, these didn't feel like weird different interactions. So if I double click near somewhere that I can walk, it shows me a dotted line of where my character will walk, and they just start walking there.
Yeah.
And it sort of leaves like a spinning reticle where I'm going.
Yeah.
But if you tap and hold for a short duration and then drag the cursor around, you have like a moving reticle that they'll always path towards, as opposed to if you drag the screen around, which moves the entire map around you. So it's kind of like that weird middle ground between double-clicking a file to open it and double-clicking a file slowly to rename it.
Yeah.
And I don't recall if that felt weird on device or if I had never even used them on device. It was a long time ago, I don't remember. But on PC, that's a weird experience, and I get a couple of times I do the wrong one because I'm not waiting the right amount of time to move into the other mode. But it doesn't really seem like it's ever really a problem.
So I can tell you right now, I'm playing Superbrothers : Swords and Sworcery EP, and yeah, this feels completely natural on the phone. Yeah. The idea of doing the quick double tap and then the slow double tap, it's wonderful on the phone.
Yep, and it feels fine with a mouse as well. It was just the timing and that being three different things that are all clicking with a mouse on a screen.
Yeah,
is very uncommon to me in a video game, at least.
Yeah.
Even in a video game that is mouse driven, because I'm terrible at remembering hotkeys. So if I was playing like Civilization or an RTS that wasn't, a competitive multiplayer, I would be using the mouse for almost everything. But none of those things would be like, well, if you slow tap on a village, then it goes into the happiness screen. But if you quickly double tap, it goes into the armory screen. Like, that's not a thing. There's always separate buttons.
Yeah.
So it's quite a unique thing here.
Probably the closest I can think of off the top of my head on PC would be using a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, like the double clicking slowly to rename a file is the closest I could think of, and that's not a thing that I ever see in video games. I think, as I mentioned earlier, I go into a hut about halfway through this playthrough, which I assume is where I would save, but it doesn't really tell me this, and nothing seems to really happen in there. But there's a little fire. I can walk around that space a little bit and walk back out the door by sort of clicking below. Sort of as if I've moved into the hut and I want to work back out of the hut.
To me, that area was... Sorry, Tony, just very quickly. To me, that sort of area, that hut and that door was just giving you the option to understand that the areas in which you can go are not limited to the screen that you're currently on. That it's not just about reaching the right-hand boundary and then moving on to the next area. There are areas inside of the area that you can find.
Yeah.
Hey, Steve, what are you trying to do at the moment in the game?
Well, up until this point, this is at about halfway through. I have been jumping around, but about halfway through, there's a winding path that I'm following. It's sort of going up and down what appears to be the side of a mountain that's always to the right. Mm-hmm. And the dog that I mentioned earlier is always kind of running ahead of me.
Okay.
And then when I met the log fella, they basically joined my party, and now they're coming with me. So they're following along with me as well.
Right.
Further down this path is where I will find a bigger, snarly dog, and the music changes a bit. It brings in a more dramatic, more tense set of instruments that go along with the regular music that's playing.
Right.
This is where it teaches me how to do combat. So on PC, tapping right mouse enters the combat mode. So at any point you can tap right mouse and it sort of zooms in on your character and gives you the sword icon.
Quite different in the iPhone version.
Yeah. So
you don't right click on the iPhone?
You don't right click. No. You utilize.
You got to use your right hand. Yeah.
Landscape and portrait mode. It's really something. It's actually pretty cool when it occurs. You get a little icon on the screen that shows a device that looks like an iPhone tilting, and then it says tilt ?
Yeah.
And then doing so kind of achieves the same purpose. Whilst it's reorienting, it also zooms in real close on your character.
So thousands of people who played a lot of pinball machines just freaked out and stopped moving their phone.
Tilt? Yeah. Oh shit, it's going to happen.
So as I approach the bigger, snarlier dog, the fight initiates. A sword and shield icon appear in the bottom of the screen. And I click them to see what happens, because they have they're much brighter than anything else on the screen. They have a glow under them, so they look like they're sitting on top of the screen, not part of it.
Okay.
So I tap them, and sure enough, when I tap sword, my character swings a sword. When I tap shield, they raise a shield in front of them. So I kind of have a viewpoint of behind my character, and the dog is in front of them. And so I sort of just mash these buttons for a bit, trying to figure out what it wants me to do. And I quickly realized that swinging my sword does nothing because I'm out of range of the dog.
So is this a virtual gamepad kind of thing?
There's just two buttons that are on the bottom of the screen, basically.
But you're actually clicking them with a mouse, not pressing buttons on your keyboard.
Yep.
Okay.
And so the dog eventually lunges at me, and I realize that I need to time it. I need to time my sword swings or my shield blocks. Mm-hmm. So
like
I think
Dark
it's
Souls.
Yep. It's the purest of Dark Souls. So I believe I hit the dog 3 times with the sword by timing 3 of its lunges at me, and then I believe it runs away. I don't actually remember if it dies or if it runs away.
Yeah, it bugs off.
Yeah. And that goes combat done, and it goes back to the other viewport, and I'm walking around again. I think this is the first time where I see that there's a side path. There's a fork in the road. And I take my character on what looks like the side path. It's a bit darker. The path, where the cobblestones would be a darker green than the main line.
Yep.
And it looks like there's a graveyard up there that my character goes up towards, but there's nothing I can do there. It's a dead end. This is all on the same screen. So I navigate them back, continue up around the top of this hill, following my dog and the log fella who had walked along the main path without me a little bit.
So is that a dead end that will open up later, or what?
This seems like it's just a dead end to show me that there are
pay attention.
Branches in the path. Yeah.
Okay. Right.
So on the next screen, there is an alternate path that leads me to first some stones with, I think they had glyphs on them. My character, you can click on them and it gives you a little bit of there are glyphs here kind of dialogue. And another section beyond that looks like it has a locked gate. That seems to be a thing that you would come back to later with something that would then open.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I continue back along the main path, so I walk the way back. This takes some time because my character is not in a hurry, and there's no fast forward button. The music's pleasant, and it's a lovely screen to look at. It's calm. It's nice, lots of shrubs, very tall trees. I continue following my dog and the log fella. We go up a hill. And there's a gap approaching what looks like a cliff face where the hill drops off. And as the camera pans over following my character, a giant stone face is what's on the other side of this gap that comes into view. It's a much darker color than the other ground and rock tiles that are on my side of this gap. And it appears to be a man's face that's the entire size of the top of this mountain, with a giant chin-strap beard, its mouth agape and its eyes closed, and that is 10 minutes.
Creepy.
I like the beard and the mountain. I like the idea that it's up to you to decide whether or not it's shadow or moss or just flat out hair.
Yeah. So I don't remember what I had played beyond this on iOS. I don't remember if that is then turns into a giant monster that I have to fight, if it just becomes...
I remember. It's an environment.
It's just a cool mountain.
You go. Basically you go in and you're inside of the mountain and descending, and then you sort of get a big story moment.
Sure. So that's my 10 minutes, and that we've gone through my notes as we've gone. Those are the things that jumped out at me that I made notes of. I think the thing that I'll point out again here that I've mentioned before is this time goes quickly. I wasn't looking at my timer trying to figure out how much longer I had to play this. I glanced at it a few times I remember when I was recording, but mostly so I was making sure I saw enough stuff. That I wasn't only reading as much dialogue as I could find. Because nothing yet feels like it's hidden, but it seems like from what I saw in the first screens, there's a lot of stuff to click on to get extra dialogue or to get extra story told to you that I imagine I am missing by moving as quickly as I started moving. And sort of the pace that the player character walks at hints to me that there's probably things I should be clicking on to get more story about. Because it's not like you double click and they sprint across the screen so that you can move on to the next fight.
Right.
So this game is very, very competent at what it does. Like, it's very slick. It feels really good to do it. But in terms of like the number of things I do, those are the things that I've done. It plays like a Monkey Island style adventure game. Mostly. I haven't had dialogue choices yet. But so far, my interaction methods are click on thing, walk to it, get a line of dialogue about it.
So that's kind of on a point that I wanted to ask about, Steve. Because when you said point and click adventure game at the beginning of the episode, again, I had zero expectations coming into this, having never seen it or played it before. But that was surprising to me. It wasn't what I had assumed this game would be based on its title. So if we're going to go through the lens of a point and click game, does it have like a starting hub area? Is there spokes of areas that you're moving off onto, or is this a left to right sort of linear branching progression? So
far, what I have done has been entirely let's go to the right.
Yeah.
As I mentioned, there have been one or two side paths that look like I will come back with an item.
Yep.
And open them.
Okay.
But one thing that I didn't mention earlier is the intro of the game actually tells you that a typical session of this game takes 15 to 30 minutes to complete. Now, I don't know if that means you'll be done in 30 minutes and thanks, or we expect that you'll reach a checkpoint in 15 to 30 minutes.
I think it may be connected somewhat to the idea that this game is being sold as an EP.
Yeah. It's like one listening session is 15 to 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And that makes sense. And the music is great. It has the great soundtrack, Steam Tag.
Yep.
And it's correct.
It's earned it.
Yep. It's very good music, and it feels... I didn't try and pick it apart, but it feels like the music is responsive. Like it's fading things in and out, and it is dynamic to what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Not just cutting between tracks or something.
Yeah.
That's kind of it. That's kind of the stuff that happens. We sort of covered the thing that I wanted to bring up if we hadn't yet, which was the interaction method being different between PC and mobile.
Yeah.
So if either of you have any other questions, let's jump in.
I do.
Yep.
Steve, did you use any swords and or Sworcery?
I used no Sworcery, but I did hit a dog with a sword 3 times.
And you've got to be happy with that.
Yeah. Well, I assume it was a dog. It could be some evil monster thing. It looked like it was an angrier version of the dog that I was following.
Right.
In terms of actual Sworcery, I mean, having a giant mountain shaped like a face indicates some level of Sworcery, I suppose.
Oh, and I forgot you do
Mount Rushmore is magic. Oh God!
I mean,
if Steve had moved just a little bit goddamn faster, you would have actually gotten to. No disrespect.
I just want to point out, Steve, that was not a review of your aptitude.
Not even a little bit. You do you, man. If you had have played for about another 30 seconds longer, you would have actually initiated some Sworcery, because in order to get across to the mountain, you need to raise your sword above where the rainbow is to initiate bridge magic. At which point, a pink tongue-colored bridge extends from the mouth of the cave.
Yeah.
So
that sounds familiar.
Super close to Sworcery. Certainly happens within the first 15 minutes. But by then,
if I hadn't taken all those side paths, then we would have got there.
Yeah,
the first 630 seconds.
Yeah.
Yes, correct.
Okay. So the one other thing that I wanted to ask about, Steve, is I realize you don't have strong recollections of playing this on mobile, but do you feel that this game is touch devices are such a specific form of interaction?
Yeah.
Do you feel that this game is, I don't know the right way to put this, do you feel it's lessened by the fact that you don't have touch?
Okay. For me, I'm sure people would disagree, but this game feels fine on PC. This doesn't feel... So I know there's a lot of negative sentiment among certain players of bad mobile ports.
Yeah.
Or
bad anything just, ports in any direction to anything else.
Bad ports, but also there's often some negative feedback from certain players about a game being a mobile game.
Yeah.
And I don't get that kind of vibe from this game. It doesn't feel like a mobile game that's been crammed onto PC.
Right.
I don't feel like I'm playing a runner. Like, I don't feel like I'm playing Temple Run. No offense to Temple Run, but this feels like a game that has a limited interaction set or a limited input device.
Okay.
But not because it was touch first. It just feels like they've decided, no, we can just use the mouse. That's fine. Okay. That's all we need.
So the reason for me asking that question in terms of my play tastes and my play habits these days is that I know the two of you probably aren't in this camp, but I will play many games on the PC with a controller plugged in.
Me too.
I just prefer it that way, and I realize the arguments about mouse precision, blah 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 blah. But I mean, I'm pushing 40, so my reflexes are kind of fucked anyway, so it doesn't really matter that much for me. But it's gotten to the point now where if I jump onto the PC to play a first-person game, it feels freaking weird. It just feels really, really weird, in the same way that if I jump on to, and I realize this is counter the point I just made, but if I jump on my iPad to play Minecraft, trying to move and look around in Minecraft on the iPad feels freaking weird because I'm so used to playing it on the PC or on the PS4. Yeah. So it isn't so much a matter of does it work or not on the PC, but it surely must feel different.
I mean, we talked a little bit about the different kinds of clicking and dragging that you wouldn't normally expect to see for a mouse-driven game.
Yeah. On
a PC, you'd expect it to just be a bunch of buttons that you click, and that's how you choose what action you want. But it doesn't feel... I'm struggling not to define this as what it isn't. It doesn't feel like a game that is a tap-to-play game that has been put on a PC where it's like, well, press any button, literally press anything, and it will work. This feels much more like a game that is just, well, you only need a mouse to play. We don't need you to have a bunch of keys on the keyboard because we don't have a bunch of bespoke actions that you need to take.
I've thought of a specific way to frame this question. When you were describing to me that a sword and a shield pop up on the bottom of the screen, if I'm imagining playing that on a mobile device, I'm now holding my phone in one hand and I have my index finger and my middle finger on my other hand hovering over each icon. Okay. If you're talking about me playing this with a mouse, I cannot do that with a mouse.
Okay, I get what you're going for. So, I don't know outside of 10 minutes, but there was never... Like, this isn't DDR. I don't need to be rapidly switching between one or the other.
Okay.
So for this first piece of combat, if I perfectly time a shield, I just take no damage, or I assume I take no damage.
Right.
But nothing happens to the dog. So if I time my sword swipe right, I believe the dog flashes.
Mm-hmm.
And if I press them any other time other than when the dog is lunging at me, it's just playing a swinging animation at nothing.
Okay.
So there's never a need to kind of be able to, within microseconds, press both buttons.
Right.
My assumption is that this game will progress and be, for this enemy, you need to know that you block when they do this animation and attack when they do this animation.
Okay.
And you'll only ever want one or the other. So I don't imagine there will be a necessity or a longing in me for being able to go, look, just put it on left and right and let me press the left and right arrows. I don't think it's going to be a kind of game that requires that of me.
Right.
And just reinforcing that in terms of its design for the phone, it's clearly been designed to be played using one hand. When you enter into combat on the iPhone, both the sword and the shield are located in the bottom right of the screen. So unfortunately, it's not designed for a southpaw like me, but it is designed to be played with a single hand. So that mentality ports over very easily to just using a mouse to play it on PC.
Right. Cool.
For my part, though, in terms of the preference between which platform to play it on, I don't really give a shit either. I don't think there's much of a difference between the interaction methods in this game as compared to something like Night in the Woods. I think we're at a point now where the complexity of video game is not correlative to the platform on which it's played.
Mm-hmm. No, I think the other thing that makes this game in particular not feel like it's out of place being on a computer is it doesn't feel like its play session length is in seconds. Like it tells me that it's 15 to 30, but this isn't have one run be it's 30 seconds and you're dead and now what do you want to do?
Right.
Yeah.
This wants me to play this game in chunks. Like me stopping at 10 minutes wasn't because I'd had enough. If I was just playing this for pleasure, I would have probably played for 30 minutes and then gone, I've had my fill of this, it's time to do something else today. Rather than it being something that I'm playing while I'm on the bus or waiting for a movie to start or something. Like it's not that kind of game.
Right, okay. Cool. All right. I'm all out of questions.
So Aaron, any other comments?
I mean, I've got one comment that I want to make, which is just that I appreciate a game that's willing to strip out this much content to be this sort of pared back and playing this game. I remember playing this game felt very meditative, and going back to it and playing it again, I'm getting a lot of the same feelings, and I like the personality that the game has because it's totally in tune with that mentality. With sort of like engaging with fantasy type dialogue, but then following that up with just very casual remarks about what's going on around the world.
A colloquial kind of tone as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I'm finding that quite groovy, and matching that with the visual, the very distinctive visual style that kind of bridges a couple of different aesthetics by the sound of it.
Yeah, I mean the game is beautiful, and the game is beautiful to look at. The game is beautiful to listen to, and overall, even though it has combat, the combat itself is very languid and relaxed. It all contributes to this sense of placidness. It's good feelings. It's nice to play a video game and not be stressed out all the time.
Yeah,
like Dark Souls.
Yeah, exactly.
like Dark Souls.
Like, what's the stress about? You know you're gonna die. Just enjoy it.
Yeah, just enjoy that sweet death over and over.
I just can't help myself. I apologize.
All right, so in terms of like a 10-minute check,
yes.
It's actually really good at letting me just figure it out. Granted, that's because it's the only thing I need to be able to figure out is there are multiple ways to click on things. And where you click will change what happens, which is an interaction method that we're all used to because we use an operating system that essentially uses the same metaphors. We use web pages that basically use the same metaphors as well. In terms of what I'm doing, in terms of like my long-term goal, there were some doors that were locked, so I probably want to find things to fix them. I know I'm on a quest because the narration told me that the log fella wasn't overly jazzed about being on this quest with us. But I'm still not sure what I'm
quest or because of you.
I'm not sure. Maybe he doesn't like my dog. I don't know.
Okay.
But I know how I'm going to continue doing this thing. I'm imagining there will be a lot more walking, a lot more sort of world narrative that I'll get, and I imagine that combat will ramp up in terms of the patterns that I have to recognize, and that there'll be different like prep animations that'll indicate whether I need to shield or block or whatever. So yeah, all good. So plugs.
Cool.
Yay, plugs.
Hope you've enjoyed it. Let us know if you have. If you haven't, you can email us. Contact
at too short.
Actually, it's not that short. Actually, I think you'll find.
Oh no.
So, I'm thinking back to the days where we had a designated heckler every episode, and I think I've adopted that role for myself this time around. So
I was thinking back to the days when we had a 4-hour episode, and this episode's only going to be about 40 minutes.
We've grown up.
So you can email us, contact@thefirstminutes.com.
Yep.
Or you can find that through the website, which is thefirst10minutes.com. You can also find us on all the social things. So Facebook, Twitter, SoundCloud, Instagram, YouTube,
Tinder,
Patreon. I mean, I imagine.
Do we have a Tinder profile?
I don't know how Tinder works. It might already be on Tinder for having a Facebook
First 10 minutes, always swipes right.
But only for 10 minutes? I don't know.
Instagram, though. Sorry, I got myself all turned around. I meant Instagram.
Yeah. Plus, that would be super confusing because there's a First 10 Minutes branded dating site as well. Anyway, Patreon, YouTube.
Confusing
Twitch.
or an opportunity?
Yep. There's an opportunity to be sued for trademark infringement.
Yeah, let's get on it.
So we're on all of those things except Tinder, where we are the First 10 Minutes.
I'm totally setting up a First 10 Minutes Tinder profile.
Go for it. I look forward to the profile description.
Just super quick.
Great.
If you want to get in touch with any of us personally, you can find me on Twitter. I nearly said Twinder. You can find me on Twitter at Cullen
It's Twitter for only twins.
At Cullen Skull, that's KALINSKALD. And I also do a series of developer interviews under the First 10 Minutes banner called Downloadable Context, which you can find on Twitter at DLContext.
I'm on Twitter if you really want to, _Steve Halliwell. You can also find my website, stevehalliwell.com. Yep.
And you can find me personally on Twitter at Poison Tasty Fish, spelled how it sounds. Or I would much rather you head over to my games criticism profile, which is at Pushing B. That's for pushing buttons, where I've just recently uploaded a piece on The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. I'm quite proud of it, so I'd love it if you could go and check that out. And also just get in touch with that directly at pushingb.com.
Yay.
Alrighty, that's a wrap.
We'll
see you again soon.
Yeah, thank you all very much for listening, and we'll catch you again next time.
Bye.
Bye.